This is a conversation with Tim Cosby, Cosby, with culture-impact.com. And we're going to do it here in 3, 2. Good afternoon, Mckoy here for Talk of the Heartland, and maybe you're listening to this live on the radio at KCRO, AM and FM. Maybe you're catching this on social media at youtube.com. Then all you got to do is put in for search Mckoy, McMckoy, and this entire thing is going to be there for you to listen to. So on the phone with me now is Tim Cosby. Tim, how are you?
Mac, I'm doing good.
Good. I really appreciate you joining me this afternoon. What we have is we have a free, what's called a test drive of his company's most important thing, and that's conversational management. Now, I'll be honest with you. When my friend Don said, I want you to take this test drive, it's only a couple hours and you'll learn a lot, my ego got in the way and said, wait a minute, I talk for a living. I know how to have conversations with people, but I went through, the good Lord wanted me to go through your test drive, and man, did I learn a lot. I mean, amazing stuff. It's free of charge to you. You just get a hold of them at culture-impact.com, and it's what, January 19th, that's the date?
That's correct.
All right, so for those who do not know what conversational management is, tell me what it is, and then help me understand the benefits of, investing a couple of hours into this test drive you've got coming up on January 19th.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate the question and really appreciate this opportunity. At the end of the day, conversational management is about learning how to coach. We've been a professional coaching training organization for 12 years. We train professional coaches. This is not athletic coaching. And what we found is that the coaching approach, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute, but the coaching approach is the most effective way to develop leaders. And I've been in, my career for, almost 40 years. And have been developing, leaders all through my career. And I wish I would have known how to do this when I first started out, when I was 23 and just fresh out of college. This would have been tremendous skill for me to have. But it's coaching, and we define coaching as this: helping people to change without telling them what to do.
Ooh. Helping people change without telling them what to do.
Yes.
Wow.
And so if you're a parent out there listening to this today, you know the power of that. You know the value of that, because your children get to a certain age and you can no longer tell them what to do. I mean, you can tell them what to do, but they're not necessarily going to do it. So coaching is an approach to help other people take more responsibility, come up with their own solutions, their own action steps, their own way that they're going to accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish, without you or without me telling them what to do or how to do it. And that's a really, really powerful approach to having interactions with people. So the concept actually came out of the 15th century, and it was in the country of Hungary. And it was an actual business, and they made coaches, literal coaches that were pulled by horses. And they would meet people where they were, take them to where they wanted to go. That was coaching. That's how the word coaching first started out. It kind of got off track in the 1900s, and it kind of got this athletic coaching feel to it, which is not that's not what we do. But that's kind of where coaching came from. So conversational management is going to change all of your conversations, because it's going to teach you skills of how to ask open-ended questions, how to listen reflectively. Most leaders do not listen well. and basically how to help people create action steps that they're actually going to do. So that's kind of the basic definition. I'll stop right there, Mac, and see if you have any questions before I go on.
Well, I just think it's interesting that you help people understand what to say without telling them what they need to say. This is really an intellectual product that you've got that truly teaches us how to fish rather than just feed fish to people who want to be better coaches, better communicators. Now, you talked about parents. Boy, I think this tool would be great for inside of churches, all kinds of leadership in churches. And again, we're talking about a free test drive that you can take on this program January 19th. And if you'd like to sign up for it, it's on Zoom. It's at culture-impact.com. So how could this benefit? I mean, I want to talk about business and family, but let's talk about the churches for a second. How does this training help people inside of churches?
Yeah, good question. We actually have a program called Coaching-Based Ministry. We wrote a book about 9 or 10 years ago called Coaching-Based Ministry. And Coaching-Based Ministry is basically a coaching approach to doing ministry. So in ministry, you're meeting people where they are and helping them to go where God wants them to be. And the twist that coaching puts on it is that you're going to help them do that without telling them what to do. And having been a pastor for most of my career, I was a chaplain at Cornerstone University for about 10 years, and then was a pastor in several churches. I wish I'd have known how to do this when I first started out in ministry. I mean, I've been through seminary. I've got a Master of Divinity degree. Nobody ever taught me this kind of stuff in that. But think about the way I just described and defined coaching, and then think about a ministry in a church, which basically is meeting people where they are, helping them to determine where it is that God wants them to go, what God wants them to do, and then helping them to actually achieve that without you telling them what they need to do. So one of the illustrations that I like to use is, it's kind of the traditional way is for a pastor or a leader in a church to come up to a person and say, "Hey, Joe, I've been watching you lately, and I'm really glad that you're part of our congregation here, and we have a new program coming up, and I think that this program would be just excellent for you, and I'd like for you to consider to be a leader." Now, there's nothing wrong with that approach, but what about if the pastor or leader went to Joe and just said, "Joe, really appreciate you being here. Curious to know what God has been saying to you lately. Curious to know what you would like to do here. How would you like to be involved? What are your spiritual gifts?" Instead of me thinking that I already know what God wants him to do, I can actually ask the person and say, "What are you hearing from God? How could I help you actually achieve what it is that you feel God is asking you to do?" So I don't care what ministry you're in. I was a worship and arts pastor, missions pastor, discipleship, men's discipleship pastor. I don't care what area of ministry you're involved in. You're working with people, and you need to meet them right where they are, which is not an easy thing to do, and help them to determine where it is that they want to go, what they want to do, and how they want to do it, and then come alongside of them and encourage them and help them to do that without you giving them advice saying, "Hey, I think you should do it this way."
Yeah, nobody ever likes to hear how they should do something. Tim Cosby is my guest today. He is with culture-impact.com. Yes, that's a website. And if you go there and say, "I'd like to attend your free test drive," it is on Zoom. You do not need to leave the house. You can trust me on this. There are no costs. You're not going to be put on 1,000 mailing lists. This business is owned by Tim and a good friend of mine, and I want to help them out because I did the test drive, and man, did I learn what I can do better. This is Conversational Management. We talked about churches. Now let's talk about business. We'll do that when we come back at AM 660, 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Talk of the Heartland this afternoon here on KCRO, AM 660 and FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. And if you go to youtube.com and just put my name in for the search, Mac, M-A-C, like macaroni, M-A-C-M-C-K-O-Y, you will find a copy of this program, and you can send it to anybody you think could be benefited. This is not for people who don't do a good job. It's taking people who do a good job and want to do it better. That's really what this training is. And we're going to talk about business for a second. And on the phone with me is Tim Cosby. Again, this January 19th is this test drive. You can sign up at culture-impact.com. So, Tim, tell me how this would benefit someone and anyone, not just a manager, especially maybe not a manager in an organization.
Sure. Well, I'll tell a couple stories to kind of help to illustrate that. One of the companies that we worked with early on was a nationwide transportation company, about 8,000 employees. It had 53 terminals across the United States, and it had about 60 terminal managers or associate terminal managers or whatever. And they were experiencing a 60% turnover rate among their terminal managers. So just stop and think about that.
Wow, that's an incredible turnover.
It's like that is not sustainable. And they had tried several things, and it hadn't really worked. And somebody, a consultant, a friend of mine, introduced me to their VP of HR. And so we went in, and we actually did a test drive with their entire executive team. And just to kind of say, hey, here's what this is, because you think that you know what this is right now, but you don't know what this is. But if you experience it, which is what you said earlier, Mac, if you experience this, you'll understand how this could be powerful and used in your organization. So I remember at the end of that test drive, their head VP came up to me and he said, Tim, so this has really, really been good. He said, everybody in this room has gotten to this level because they're really good at what they do. They're really good with people. These are smart people. But he said, I've realized through this training that whenever someone comes to me with a question or a problem, I immediately go into problem-solving mode and tell them how to fix it. He said, what this training has done is it's helped me to understand that when people come to me, it's my responsibility to develop them as a leader, not just to tell them what to do. So instead of immediately going to problem-solving mode, I need to take a breath, step back, and say, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. What have you tried? What do you think the problem is that you're really trying to solve? What do you think might work? You're the closest person to this. I might have some suggestions, but I'd really like to hear what you have to say. And he said, I've never done that. And I'm a VP of a company with 8,000 employees, and I've never done that before. So he said, I'm gonna change. And I can see how this could help our terminal managers develop the frontline leaders in each of those terminals, and I can see how this would lead to higher engagement. So we went through that test drive with the VPs and the president, and they said, okay, we're going to bring this to the organization. And so within a period of about 12 months, we trained somewhere around 150 leaders across the United States, and got really positive response. It was a trucking company, and we got really positive response to this. And I thought I did these trainings, and I thought, these truck drivers are just going to kind of laugh me right off the stage, because this sounds a little too touchy-feely, and they're not going to like this. But they didn't. They responded, and they said, this is different from the way we've learned, and we can see how this would actually empower people. And so, would you come And would you train the union reps in our facility? Because they said they're the ones that really need to know how to do that. So if I have any union reps that are listening to this broadcast, take that in a good way. It would be helpful. It would be helpful for you if you learn how to do this. So make a long story short, at the end of 12 months, we had helped them take their turnover of 60% down to 19%. That was actually in 11 months we helped them do that. That's how powerful this approach is.
And the money that saves a company on having to go out and hire and train someone new, that's a phenomenal amount of money. And I know that owners know that, but do managers know how much money they're going to save if your organization comes in and works with them just off of turnover?
No, they don't. And what I've observed, and I could be wrong about this, but I would say, I always tell people that the person that I want to talk to in an organization is the person who wants to save the most money. That's not always a manager. That's not always a head of human resources. So I don't think that generally people are aware of how much this costs them. We actually have a cost of turnover calculator that we use with companies to help them determine what their cost is. And this particular transportation company that I'm talking about, we helped them save about $3.2 million. And that amounted to a 2,200% return on investment. It's like, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is 22%. Right? That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. So, but I would say, most managers probably don't realize how much it really costs them. They know that it's costing them, but for them, it's more about the time that it's taking and the extra work that is now coming on their shoulders because of this. So they're kind of looking at it through maybe a little different lens than a CFO or a CEO might look at it.
We're talking with Tim Cosby today, and his company is culture-impact.com. And he trains people like me, and hopefully you, in how to be a better conversationalist. Now, when I heard about this in the first place, I told my friend Don, who's part of this company, come on, I'm in radio 50 years. I know how to talk. I know how to communicate. Well, just take the test drive, Don says. I think you'll like it. Well, I did, and love it, to the point where I have Tim going to be putting on a complimentary test drive of his program, and it's happening on January 19th. It's on, Zoom, and it's absolutely free. There's no catch at the end. We don't take your email and sell it to people. This is an honest-to-goodness, and Tim's a pastor. He wants to help people learn how to communicate better with the people that you have around you. So here's a question. Let me ask you this. Let's get all a little selfish for a moment. How will this help managers advance their careers?
Well, for one thing, I think every manager wants to be a good manager. I haven't met any manager that has set out to be a bad manager. So every manager understands the importance of communication and especially conversations. And what if they could learn a skill that would help them in every conversation they ever have? I mean, just stop and think about the impact of this kind of training that actually changes the way you have conversations with anybody, wherever you are. So I think every manager would love to have better conversations. And I think the managers that I've met through the years would like to develop more trust among their direct reports. I can't think of anything that builds trust faster than this approach to helping people. When you start putting the spotlight on them, stop giving them advice and telling them what to do and giving them commands and actually start asking them questions about their lives or the things that are important to them, and then say, what do you think, Sally? What do you think would be the best thing to do here? That's how you build trust. And I think every manager would love to build more trust. I think every manager would love for their employees to have a greater sense of accountability. And if you just tell somebody what to do, they're not necessarily going to be very accountable for that.
Yeah, especially when you're a manager and you're looking for talented, creative, passionate people. And I could speak from experience as a manager myself. I failed many times because I failed to take a look at what the needs of my employees were, the needs of my congregation were, the needs of my team. I just thought I was all that in a cup of soup. But when it comes right down to it, I hadn't been trained properly. And that's what this test drive will help you do. The test drive, again, is January 19th. It's all on Zoom. It costs nothing. We're not trying to collect your emails. It's the real deal. Tim, who owns the company, along with Don, he's a pastor. Honest people surround you on this, and that's why I wanted Tim to come on today and share this with you just a little bit. All right. When we come back, I want to hear some of the benefits, and I know you've talked about a little of them, so I'm going to list some things that I think would be a benefit and then give you an opportunity to share. And then in our last session today, we're going to talk about those folks that I'm just scared to death of, Gen X, because they're the people that are going to take care of you and I in the future. So let's make sure they get trained on how to be a conversationalist, a conversational management person, someone who understands how to communicate in a good and godly way. I'm Mac McCoy. This is AM 660, 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at kcro.com. 3, 2. Well, welcome back to Talk of the Heartland. I'm Mac McCoy on KCRO. I've got Tim Cosby on the radio with me today. I took this class, and by the way, there's no compensation being done for any of this. I'm doing this for Tim and Don because I took the test drive. I mean, Don had to almost pay me to take it, but he didn't, and I'm glad he didn't because I needed it so much anyway, and it's coming to you for free. January 19th, that's the test drive. It's a Zoom call, no dollars. You won't be asked for money at the end. We're not collecting your emails. It is genuinely meant to help people be better at conversation, a conversational management tool, and you can find that at culture-impact.com. All right, we've talked about parents. We've talked about churches. We've talked about managers. Here's a question that I have for you. What will I experience if I'm a manager that my employee has also taken this? Better collaboration with them working with me? Tell me how they benefit, Tim.
How the employee benefits?
Well, how the manager benefits by asking their employees to go through this training.
Okay. Well, now I understand your question. So our conversational management program is for managers to go through this training. Once managers start using these skills with their employees, then there's a tremendous benefit there. Some of the things that I just talked about: more trust, better communication, accountability. Less time directing the employee, and all that kind of stuff. We actually have another program that's more condensed. It's shorter, called Conversational Collaboration. And that's actually designed for employees. That's actually designed for next generation leaders so that an organization can spread these skills and mindset across the organization and actually start to change their culture.
That's awesome.
So the employees, they're going to have better conversations. Every employee would, I think, benefit from that. Better relationships. I think they would take greater ownership of their role, whatever that role is. This is going to provide more development opportunities for them, and I think especially for next-gen leaders, that's what they're looking for. It's going to increase their capability, their individual capability. They're going to be more engaged. They're going to produce at a higher level, and they're going to get along better with their manager and other employees around them.
All right, so I want to paint a scenario here, and this isn't Tim's scenario. This is mine. Let's say that I'm a manager, and I know my stuff. I've been around the block. This isn't my first rodeo. What Tim just explained to you is how it benefits your employees, which benefits you. As a manager, sometimes we shut the doors on advice. I got hired because I know this, and so I know it better than anybody. I'm the boss. Do it the way I want. Why? Because I'm the boss. And that's the worst reason in the world. If a manager comes before their team and says, I want you guys to be better communicators. I want you guys to gain things from this. You're going to increase innovation and creativity. You're going to be able to develop a more human-centered culture. And with smartphones and texting and Netflix and all of that, we're losing a generation of people that don't know how to communicate if it's not with their thumbs or with their remote controls. You see, communication will never change. We will always know that what we say to people, maybe they'll remember, but they'll always remember how we make them feel. And one of the things that this organization, Tim's organization, culture-impact.com, will help you do as a manager, give some incredible, priceless gifts to your employees. All right, when we come back, we're going to hit what I think is the toughest part of this, and that is Gen X. Now, that's one of the reasons why this isn't some seminar we want you to fly into, stay 2 nights, et cetera, et cetera. This is free. It's 1 day. It's just a couple hours. It's on January 19th, and it's called a test drive. And it will help you as an employee communicate better with your manager. It'll help you as a manager better communicate with your employees. And as the owner of the company, it all rests on your shoulders. So you have to take the time to train yourself to be, well, as I like to say, the leader of the pack determines what the rate of the pack is. So the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack, and you're the leader. What are you going to do to make yourself better? I'm Mac McCoy. When we come back, we'll tell you more about this free test drive that you could get. Maybe you want to look it up on your computer, on the website, culture-impact.com, and we're coming back to talk about, next gen, the generation that will take care of us when it's time for them to take over. That's coming next here on AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln, and all around the world at kcro.com. 3, 2, 1. Hey, we are back here now with Tim Cosby from culture-impact.com. And the reason I give you that website, that's the only way you can receive an invitation to this free Zoom test drive. And if you're waiting for the other shoe to fall, there is no other shoe. There's no cost. We're not going to ask you for money. This is a pastor, Tim is a pastor, who has created this method of training and teaching, because if you don't know what to do, then how can you be held responsible for what you do? So we want to help you understand how to not only communicate better, but to have a team of people that communicate better. And you can learn that on that free test drive, January 19th. And all you have to do is go to culture-impact.com and get registered. All right, Tim, with just a few more minutes left, talk to me a little bit about coaching from within, a new model for developing next-gen leaders.
Yeah, well, in our research, we found that what keeps CEOs awake at night, like 55% of CEOs are kept awake at night thinking about how to develop next generation leaders. So I just turned 68 not too long ago. So I'm a baby boomer. And I would say that most owners of companies and a lot of managers are probably baby boomers. If not, they're, maybe a little bit younger than that, Gen X or whatever. And we have not been taught how to develop the next generation.
Oh, no kidding.
And leaders, owners of companies understand that if they don't have a leadership pipeline and they're not developing next generation leaders, they won't be around in 10 years. And now with 5 generations in the workplace, things have changed. And employee needs have changed. You say, how have they changed? Well, our research has shown that the next generations coming into the workplace, iGen, which would be the youngest generation, and millennials, they prefer development and growth opportunities over all other benefits. That's what the latest research has shown. That was amazing to me. But they want to develop and grow. They're purpose-driven. They want to have a purpose, which means that managers are going to have to learn how to find out what their purpose is. And some of the latest books out on developing managers, Gallup's new book called It's the Manager, have found that next generation leaders want a coach, not a boss. So the test drive that you took, Mac, was really the first step in helping managers to move from boss to coach.
Now, I want to stop you for just a second, Tim, because I think that's so important. And I love your tone and I love your passion. We have to become partners with our employees, not just their bosses, because nobody likes to be bossed around. But everybody likes to feel good inside. And when you have someone coaching, caring for you through the process of learning, which we're always learning. By the way, the day you think you arrive, that's your last day at work because you never arrive. So hear what Tim is going to teach you with this test drive. It's going to teach you how to manage your employees so that they work for you. They work with you. They don't work against you. Tim, I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's really good. Next generation leaders also want what's called high touch, continuous feedback. My generation, that's not what I was looking for when I was 22 years old in the workplace. But these younger generations, they want high touch, continuous feedback. How am I doing? How can I get better? How do you do this kind of thing? Which means that with all of those needs in the next generations coming into the workplace, it means that leaders that are currently leaders in organizations need a whole new set of skills. And I call it a full spectrum leader. And I don't really want to go off into all of that, but this is a central part of understanding the value of this. A full spectrum leader is a leader that's able to lead on either side or at any place in the leadership spectrum. And think of a spectrum as going from giving direction or telling people, commanding, all the way to supporting, empowering, helping to get them engaged, creativity. On that right-hand side of the leadership spectrum, that's where people grow. So if you want your people to grow, you have to know the skills to help them grow. And telling them what to do is not going to get growth. They might agree with you or disagree with you, or whatever your advice is, but that's not how you get people to grow. So conversational management gives you the skills to lead people and develop people any place on that leadership spectrum. So when a person comes to you and you sense, this is a really good growth moment for them, and I could tell them what to do. They may do it or they may not do it, and I may not know the best thing to do. So I'm going to ask them. I'm going to help them to come up with their own plan, to be creative, to be engaged, fully engaged, take full responsibility, because that's how they grow. Those are the skills